Judicial and Bar Council, Honorable Maria Milagros Fernan Cayosa, Honorable Jose V. Mejia, and Honorable Aurora Santiago Lagman. Please remain standing for the prayer, for the centennial prayer for the courts, the national anthem, and the Supreme Court hymn.
Almighty God, we stand in your holy presence as our supreme judge. We humbly beseech you to bless and inspire us so that what we think, say, and do will be in accordance with your will. Enlighten our minds, strengthen our spirit, and fill our hearts with fraternal love, wisdom, and understanding, so that we can be effective channels of truth, justice, and peace. In our proceedings today, guide us in the path of righteousness for the fulfillment of your greater glory. Amen.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiging, sa manlulupit, di ka pasisilil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong baghaw, may nilang ang tulan, awit sa paglayang minamahal, ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nanginginig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may magdidilim, lupa ng araw ng maraming pagsita, buhay ay langit sa atin mo, aming ligaya na pag may mamapit, at mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. Guardians of our rights, enrolled in majesty and light, uphold the fundamental law. From this writ, all their judgments grow. With conscience free their views to air, they vow and this to all declare.
continuance of the public interview of candidates for the vacant post of Associate Justice of the Supreme Court is now declared open.
Apolinario D. Bruselas Jr. of the Court of Appeals, Associate Justice Ramon Paul Hernando of the Court of Appeals, and Associate Justice Stephen C. Cruz of the Court of Appeals. May I request Associate Justice Bruselas, Associate Justice Hernando, and Associate Justice Cruz to proceed to the holding area while the JBC conducts the interview of Chairman PULIDO-TAN.
Good morning, Madam Chair, PULIDO-TAN. This is the first time that you will be appearing before the Judicial and Bar Council.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So for the record, will you please say something about yourself?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm currently a government auditor. I am married to the same man I've loved since first year law school for 31 years now. We have 5 children, all born by cesarean section, and whom my husband and I have raised to the best of our abilities in the values of family-centeredness, of love and respect for God, of being accountable stewards of His blessings, of a culture of excellence, and just being responsible citizens. And happily, they have all turned out to be highly achieving, driven, and yes, very responsible children. They're all on their own now, Your Honors, and which frees me from a lot of pressure, and with a lot more time and energy to really devote myself to public service. I have been a lawyer. I've been in the practice of law for 32 years now, and that includes the stints that I've had in government. First, as chairman of the PCGG, I'm sorry, of commissioner of the PCGG under then Chairman Yorak, and then as undersecretary of finance for revenue, and presently as chairperson of the Commission on Audit. Because all of this, in all of these capacities, I've had to, and I need to apply the law and make sure that all our actions are in adherence to the mandates of the law. And in all of my life as a public servant, which has not really been very long, I have always endeavored to perform my functions and responsibilities with the highest degree of integrity, of competence, of professionalism. And should I be appointed to the Supreme Court, Your Honors, I shall do no less. Thank you.
Honorable Maria Milagros Fernand-Cayosa will start the interview.
Thank you, Madam Justice Lagman. Good morning, Chairperson PULIDO-TAN.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Yes, just for the record, we both come from the same IBP chapter in Cagayan.
Yes, Your Honor.
And, well, I guess everyone's question, at this point, now that you're being interviewed, perhaps you might want to tell the public that in these very crucial times where the Commission in Audit is called upon to investigate the misuse or the allegations of misuse of public funds, why have you decided to, consider leaving the Commission on Audit and aspire for the Supreme Court?
Thank you, Your Honor. My term as chairman of the Commission on Audit expires on February 2, 2015. So that's exactly 247 days from now, if I recall it right. It's about 8 months. So paalis na rin po talaga ako sa Commission on Audit. And this opportunity came. I was nominated to the Supreme Court, and I said, why not? If I could continue what we have started at the Commission on Audit, in the Supreme Court, then I would be very pleased to do so, Your Honor.
What would you think you would bring to the court that you can say is distinctively yours, which sets you apart from the other applicants for the position?
Your Honor, I think the past 3 years that I've been in the Commission on Audit have shown that I can be trusted, the people can trust me, that I am competent, highly competent, if I may say, and that matapat po ako sa pagtupad ng aking tungkulin bilang isang public servant. We have done a lot of reforms in the Commission on Audit. There have been a lot of reports that shook a lot of people and even the country as a whole. Nabanggit po ninyo yung PDAF. I think that is a sterling example na magmula po sa mataas hanggang po sa ating mga ordinaryong mamamayan really stopped and took notice of what we did and what was happening, what is happening to the country. And that took a lot of courage, Your Honor. And I could say that meron po ako nun, yung tapang ng loob, yung purity of purpose, if I may say, kasi wala naman po kaming naging agenda, kundi pagtupad sa tungkulin namin sa bayan. And that is what I have. I am also a certified public accountant, and I think that it has all these years of my being a lawyer really helped me positively. I think that because of that, I became a better lawyer because I get a better understanding of a lot of disciplines. And I think that the culture of integrity and excellence and professionalism that I have always endeavored to carry out, both in my private and my public life, and which I think has been dished out to the entire country to see, I would bring them to the court, Your Honor.
Well, actually, to summarize, while you have no judicial experience, you have 24 years as a private practitioner, 7 years as an academician, and 6 years as a public officer. Now, we noticed that you divulged that you were a commissioner of the PCGG for a not so long a period, that was from 2002 to 2003. Why such a short stint?
For 6 months, Your Honor. That was my first government stint, and it was at the insistence of then Chairman Yorak that I relented. And then 6 months into the PCGG, the Department of Finance asked if I could move over there because they needed at that time an undersecretary for revenue operations, and they said that I fitted the position well, being a lawyer and an accountant, because as undersecretary for revenue operations, I had oversight of both the Bureau of Internal Revenue and the Bureau of Customs. So, magmula po noon talagang nalilinya ako sa mga ahensya na talagang may persepsyong maraming korupsyon, no? So, the ill-gotten wealth when I was in PCGG, then BIR, Customs, and now in the Commission on Audit. So parang nalinya po ako sa ganong trabaho din.
As Undersecretary of the Department of Finance, what would you consider as the most significant achievement?
Your Honors, I would consider as significant the tax measures the tax reform agenda at the time that we were able to see through enactment in Congress. No, there were several going on at that time, and I was in charge. I was on top of all of them. I was representing government. I was representing the DOF in both houses of Congress, the Senate and Congress. I would also like to think that the revenue regulations and other issuances at the time, I had to review them before they could get enacted, and I think that at the time we had a pretty good set, reasonable and effective rules and regulations on tax administration, which helped really improve the tax collection at the time. We saw kind of a dip, and then when we came in, medyo umakit na rin po. I would say that those were pretty good achievements at that time.
How did you bring to fruition perhaps the benefits of what you started in the Department of Finance now as a COA chairperson? If you say that you will introduce some tax measures and reform agenda, and perhaps you might want to be more specific.
Yes, Your Honor. At the time, I think that we did the excise taxes, for example. No, that was excise taxes on cars, on cigarettes, on. It's a never-ending debate, really, but it's always one of the most difficult tax measures to push because of the many interest groups. And, there's always lobbying, and there's always a lot of diverse interests that we have to contend with. It's really not much different now that I am in the Commission on Audit because it's still the same thing. Ngayon naman ho, I'm on the other side. No, before we were going after the private sector. This time, the Commission, we are going after the public sector, meaning the public officials. So, in a sense, my life has become full circle, and I have a good vantage view of both sides. And there's really not much difference in terms of how we deal with them. For me, the values of consistency, the values of firmness, of fairness, of reasonableness have always been very good advantages.
Throughout your stint as a public servant, was there an incident where you felt that your integrity and independence were put to test?
Practically every day, Your Honor, but I never dealt with influence peddlers and stuff like that. I did not deal with them. I did not want to deal with them. And for me, every day the choice was clearer. I had to stand my ground, and I did.
In a practical manner, how would you deal with it? I mean, like somebody is coming to see you, and you already can anticipate what they want to see you for. So, and perhaps, this individual is known to you personally. So, in practical terms, how do you deal with it?
I tell them straight, Your Honor, that I do not discuss matters like those, and I will decide on the merits of any given case alone.
Thank you, Chairperson. Now, moving on to another topic, you have been an MCLE lecturer and you held a professorial chair with the UP College of Law.
Yes.
And from 2001 to 2008. So you're familiar with issues that would concern legal education.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you believe that there are, innovations or things that we should change in the system of legal education to ensure ethics, not just competence, but ethics among legal practitioners, future lawyers?
Your Honor, I think from when I was a student and even before that, we've always had legal ethics as a core subject. But it is not really something that can be learned in the classroom alone. because I think it starts from the home. Integrity starts from the home. The values that we grew up with, the values that we are raised in. Of course, that is something outside of our control. But in law school, exposing our law students early on to various circumstances, for example, and it's like, just putting them where it is, and with guidance, how will they deal with it, or how will they handle these kinds of things. Kasi po ngayon, if I remember correctly, meron po tayong legal aid, no, but that is usually when we are in fourth year already. But I think that even as early as first year, second year, maybe it could be part of a practicum where we could say a clerk in some court. Kasi doon po natin makikita yung aksyon. Kasi kung sa classroom lang, we're kind of insulated. And then, one of the biggest shocks in my life was as a young lawyer, when I did start going to court, yung mga ganon, doon ako, nangyayari pala talaga yon. Before that, when I was a student, kwento lang. Kaya siguro po, habang bata pa, habang maaga pa, unti-unti po siguro natin silang ini-expose, and with guidance from the professors, nadidiscuss din, so anong ginawa ninyo? Ano sa palagay nyo dapat gawin natin pag nandito kayo sa ganitong sitwasyon? Practical po na pamamaraan. Modeling also by our own professors, and it means a lot.
At one point, the Supreme Court ordered the making mandatory legal aid. You mentioned legal aid.
Yes.
Do you believe that legal aid should be made mandatory so that lawyers to be considered in good standing should serve for X number of hours within a given period in legal aid cases?
Your Honor, I think that it is a very laudable move by the Supreme Court. However, siguro po pwede nating i-improve yon, kasi right now, the legal aid that is contemplated is legal representation in court. No, and then you need to be certified by the clerk of court, how many hours did you spend, etc., etc. Pero ang legal aid po, hindi lamang sa korte. Outside of the court, in fact, mas importante kung minsan yun. Ang dami po nating mahihirap na nangangailangan talaga ng tulong. Maski man lamang paggawa ng affidavit, nawalan ng lisensya, o ganito ganyan, wala po silang pamamaraan. So ako, if I were to suggest, parang siguro magandang i-expand natin yung definition ng legal aid na hindi lang yung representation sa korte. At saka siguro lahat ng mga law offices, say in one locality, Makati or Manila for that matter, they should reserve a day or some hours where people from Manila can go to their office at kung ano man ang kanilang mga pangangailangang legal. Kung minsan maski maliit na konting ari-arian na iwan, they may have ari-arian, but that does not mean that they can already afford to get lawyers. Pero kailangan po nila yung representation. So I think that yes, we can make it mandatory and perhaps even expand it more. It's part of I think it's part of our oath as lawyers to help. So we shouldn't even be told. But if we are told, that's okay too. Yeah.
Some criticize mandatory legal aid service as not being practical because you cannot mandate compassion. How would you respond to that?
Your Honor, I don't think it's a matter of compassion. It's a matter of duty. As a citizen, as a lawyer, kasama po sa oath natin yan, kasama po din yan sa ating rights and obligations as citizens, magtulungan. So, and since lawyers are under the supervision and regulation of the Supreme Court, sumunod po tayo.
Madam Chairperson, my last question. Next year, the ASEAN area is expected to have a liberalization and will have a free flow of all services, including legal services. Now, some countries like Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam have already taken steps towards accession packages that would allow foreigners to engage in professions in their country, including legal profession. However, the Philippines is not one of those that has committed to liberalization because of the limitations in our constitution. How do you think the Supreme Court will address this, considering that the Supreme Court has the exclusive prerogative to regulate the admission to the practice of law in the Philippines?
Your Honor, I think that there are two basic approaches to this matter in other jurisdictions as far as I know. Yung una po is a full authority or full access, meaning a foreign lawyer can come to the Philippines and practice Philippine law in the Philippines as well as whatever law they are allowed to practice. The other is limited, which is limited to the law of their jurisdiction. So if an American lawyer comes here, he may be allowed to practice only matters involving American law but not Philippine law. So I think the Supreme Court can have that choice. Now, in terms, but whatever it is, I would go for the limited practice. But whatever it is, I think that the Supreme Court should never be divested of its authority to regulate foreign practice, practice of law by foreign lawyers in the Philippines. For example, in respect of advertisement. No? In other jurisdictions, pwede pong mag-advertise sa mga lawyers. Sa atin, hindi. Paano ngayon kung sa jurisdiction ng abogadong yon pwede ba niyang gawin dito? Hindi naman ho siguro pwede. I mean, we will be put at a disadvantage. No? Things like that. So I would go for a limited, I would suggest a limited access, and at the same time, full regulation then, as if whatever is applicable to a lawyer practicing in the Philippines should be applicable to them.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. As I mentioned, that is my last question, and I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Lagman.
Honorable Jose V. Mejia will also ask you some questions.
Thank you, Justice Lagman. Good morning, Chairman PULIDO-TAN.
Thank you po. Good morning.
What are the specific aspects of the work of a Supreme Court Associate Justice which had prompted you to apply for the position and which you find appealing to you, that you want to make it your next career to become a Justice of the Supreme Court?
The work of a Justice of the Supreme Court, I think, is the apex, the height of any lawyer's dream. In law school, we've always been taught how lofty the law is. We're always told about the majesty of the law, and it is something that I see the justices of the Supreme Court do. I was privileged to be an amicus in the PDAF cases, and I was there so mesmerized by all the justices with their very incisive and probing questions, with their demeanor, with their air of wisdom and knowledge, and sabi ko, ito gusto kong mangyari sa buhay ko, ito ang gusto kong gawin. I've always loved the law, and parang ngayon pong pagkakataon sa buhay ko, now that I'm 58 years old, it's what I'd like to do the rest of my life. It's something that I know I can do because I am a very diligent student of the law. I study and work hard. I can be very contemplative and introspective. I can be apart from the crowd and even still be in the crowd. It's the intellectual exercise also. All of that, Your Honor, I want so well, no, as a personal, how do you call that, as a personal measure of how far I would come as a lawyer. But beyond that, Your Honor, why do I want to be in the Supreme Court? Because I have seen in my 3 years in the Commission na ang laki ng pwede nating gawin para sa mahihirap. And justice, access to justice, is especially to the poor, parang yun ang kanilang last bastion of hope. At kung may pagpapatuloy ko po sa Supreme Court, ito, I'd be very happy.
There's a perception that given that the president will only have one chance during his the remaining years of his administration, that he wants to put people who will protect him when he retires as president. Given your closeness to the current president, how will you assure the public of your independence when you become a justice of the Supreme Court?
Your Honor, let me say that I am not personally close to the president. When I was appointed to the commission, I did not even know him personally, and I don't think he knew me personally. We met only after he has appointed me. And in any event, since my appointment, of course, I appreciate very much the trust that he has reposed in me. But then from day one, I have endeavored to really make the commission the independent constitutional commission that it was meant to be. And so again, I would say that from the very beginning to this day, the president has not been given any special consideration or privilege by the Commission on Audit. We audit the Office of the President, we office the presidential management staff in the same way that we audit every other agency of the government, including the Supreme Court. And we have had some adverse findings as well. And I invite everyone to look at our website, www.coa.gov.ph. Nakapost po lahat doon yung audit reports namin sa Office of the President, sa PMS, and I think these are the two offices that would involve the President very closely. At makikita po ng tao kung ano ba ang aming nahanap at i-report po namin lahat, pabor man o hindi sa ating pong Presidente. And the same thing with his alter ego, the cabinet, the line agencies, ganun din po. It's everything is so transparent. I think the public has been watching us on all of these things. They're all on record, Your Honor.
Thank you. In an article published by the Inquirer on September 29, 2013, it was stated that you are staying at your post for only 4 years or until February 2, 2015, and would be seeking election as a member of the United Nations Board of Auditors for a 6-year term from 2014 to June 2020. Does this post at the UN still remain an option?
That is not exactly
Accurate.
correct, Your Honor. It is not me who sought to be a member of the UN Board of Auditors. It's the Commission on Audit po. But that is already done, and we did not get the position. The Commission on Audit did not get the position, but the Commission on Audit is the external auditor of the World Health Organization and the Food and Agriculture Organization, two of the specialized agencies of the UN. It's not a personal post, Your Honor.
Thank you for clarifying that, Chairman. I read a few weeks back that this is about a particular tax issue that I read in the papers, that the present BIR Commissioner has required or is requiring all taxpayers to now fill up a particular form to report their passive income. What is your take on that?
Maraming beses na hong inattempt na ginawa ito. I think that if we look at the tax code, may authority naman po, may sapat na authority naman yung ating commissioner na i-require ito, yung reporting requirement na ito, kung passive income lang. Pero kung may mga iba pong impormasyon na hinihingi, for example, that will make you effectively disclose your bank accounts because, for example, bank interest is a passive income. So, kung nakakabit po doon yung bank deposit, no, of course, that is not something that anyone would like to do. And I think that that would not be reasonable.
Thank you. For my final question, you will be up against candidates who come from within the judiciary, particularly members of the Court of Appeals. From someone like you coming from the outside, what do you think is your distinct advantage over the other applicants?
Unang-una po, kanina sinabi ko, I think it is an advantage that I'm a certified public accountant as well, and that in all of my public life, I have demonstrated that I adhere to the highest standards of morality, of integrity, of excellence, of professionalism. At kung tungkol naman po sa pag-a-adjudicate, no, I may not have been a judge, but in my capacities as Undersecretary of Finance for Revenue and even in the commission as Chairperson of the Commission on Audit, nag-adjudicate po ako. When I was in the Department of Finance, lahat po ng mga decisions ng Commissioner of Customs, ina-appeal po yan sa Department of Finance. At ako po yung nag-adjudicate noon in behalf of the Secretary. So adjudicatory po yun because I had to decide, and I always decided based on the records. In the Commission on Audit, ganun din po. Yung aming audit actions po ng aming mga auditors, notices of disallowances and suspensions, as well as money claims of private entities from government agencies, pumupunta po sa amin for adjudication. And so, like, if at least once a month, we also meet and bank and promulgate all these decisions, which are, our decisions, by the way, are directly brought to the Supreme Court on petition for certiorari. So, ganun ho, medyo taas din yung antas ng aming pagdedesisyon. Though quasi-judicial, I think that experience-wise, pwede po naman ako makipagsabayan sa kanila.
Yun po ang huling katanungan ko. Good luck, Chairperson PULIDO-TAN. And thank you, Justice Lagman.
Salamat po.
Okay. Madam Chair, PULIDO-TAN, I have a few questions. No, I was reading your PDS, and it shows your extensive exposure, training, and practice in the field of taxation.
Yes, ma'am.
So you are applying for a post in the Supreme Court, which is of general jurisdiction. You will handle and encounter all kinds of cases in the Supreme Court. Can you tell us, Madam Chair, aside from taxation, in what areas or fields of the law do you consider yourself as proficient or as an expert?
Okay. Thank you po. I'm also very good at corporations, securities, trade and investments, property, property development, real estate. I did labor and banking and finance work also. Tapos, syempre po, hindi naman pwedeng substantive lang ang alam natin dyan. So, yung procedural din po, kaya ko din po yun. I stopped litigating. I mean, by that, I mean going to court when I was younger. Bata pa ho ako noon, ayoko nang pumunta sa korte noon because I was a young mom. I was pregnant a lot of times, so medyo cumbersome. But I continued litigating by really doing case strategies, doing pleadings, and then habang po ako'y naging senior, I reviewed pleadings. So lahat po ng aspeto ng practice of law, nadaanan ko po. Kaya lang po naha-highlight yung taxation kasi ito po yung aking naging area of concentration. Kumbaga, no, na talagang pati sa college, yun po ang tinuro ko. Parang dun ho ako nag-specialize. Pero hindi po ibig sabihin na kinalimutan ko na po yung ibang aspeto ng batas. Hindi po.
So in other words, you're telling us that you are also familiar or have experience in handling criminal cases, those involving questions of constitutionality.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, so you have handled all those kinds
Yes,
of
Your
cases
Honor. Yes,
and
Your
civil
Honor.
cases.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So, as you have stated a while ago, everybody knows that you are now in the eyes of the storm because of your sensitive position as chairperson of the Commission on Audit. I'm just curious, how do you handle the pressures, both internal and external, which you encounter in your day-to-day work or life as the top person in the commission?
Pagdadasal po. It's my faith. It's in the morning when I wake up, I pray. During the day, I pray. In the evening, I pray. And paniniwala ko po sa Diyos, pananalig ko po sa Kanya, that's what really gives me peace. Plus, of course, the fact na lahat po naman ng mga aksyon at desisyon na ginagawa ko as chairperson ay ayon sa batas, ayon sa ebidensya, at fair naman po at consistent ang treatment sa lahat. In other words, I really can go to sleep with a very clear conscience. And yun, nawawala po ang takot ko, yung pressure ho. Parang it's just part of the daily routine, but I really don't put much thought to it.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, it's a public notice or knowledge that there are some people also in the commission who are involved in some shady activities. How do you handle this problem of corruption in the commission?
Tatlong pamamaraan ho, mainly. Unang-una po, yung I would say by my conduct and example. Kasi ho, nakikita nila na hindi ko pinotolerate yun. And I take every measure that I can para mabago po ang sistema. And I have been very consistent. Kung ano pong sinabi kong gagawin ko, talagang ginagawa ko po yun. And they know that. Pangalawa, yun hong internal affairs namin at yung investigasyon, the administrative investigation that we do, we've made them swift and we've made them very consistent and we've been very firm with our decisions. Kung kailangan ito according to the rules, kung ito'y suspension for 6 months, whether 1,000 lang ang kinuha o 100,000, it's going to be applied evenly. And I think that has the effect na we do not make exceptions, no? So seryoso po, no? And pangatlo, yun hong regularly na pagre-reassign o pagre-reshuffle ng mga auditors. Wala na po ngayong tumatagal ng more than 3 years in one position, no? At saka yung aming mantra ngayon is to make integrity a way of life, not just an academic thing or abstraction, but talagang ito ang ating buhay. So mantra po namin yan sa COA. Mantra din namin yung we stand our ground. At awa ng Diyos naman po, parang mas maayos naman po kami ngayon. I mean, we get a lot of commendations already, even from strangers, and I think that that's a very good feedback.
Okay. You know, in the judiciary, corruption allegedly committed by some members is also one of the major problems in the judiciary. So if you will be fortunate to be nominated and appointed as a member of the highest court of the land, what would you propose to address this problem?
How?
Yeah, how? What would you propose to totally eradicate this problem of corruption committed by some members of the judiciary?
Totally mahirap po siguro
Yeah.
yun.
If not
But
totally,
at least,
at
yes,
least
yes, we can,
you can,
we can
if you
do
can
something.
do something
Yes.
to even partially or reduce the incidence of corruption, what would you propose?
Sa akin po, ang isa sa pinakamalaking impluensya would be the conduct of the magistrate mismo. Kung ang mga kung mga justices po ng Supreme Court ay nakikita ng lahat na ganito ang ginagawa o ganito nila kinakonduct ang buhay, it will trickle down. I mean, it will go down because the tone is, natutunan ko po ito sa ating bureaucracia, the tone is always set at the top.
Yeah.
So by example ho talaga and by the conduct of the justices. Pangalawa, yung siguro kailangan din nating talagang alamin kung bakit nagkakaganoon, no? Ano ba ang mga peculiar hardships or temptations para kailangan ho siguro mag-ikot. Kausapin ho natin yung mga huwes, hindi lamang sa mga RTC, pero dun sa baba, ganon, no? At hindi lang po mga huwes, kundi yung mga ibang personnel din ng ating mga korte, clerk of court, baski mga sheriff, kung minsan may naririnig po tayo.
Yes.
Kailangan po nating alamin yon. Kasi mahirap yung yung linalahat ba na ay korap yan, pero bakit nga ba?
Yes.
Opo. Saka, what makes them so really vulnerable?
Yeah.
And then let's address that. Ako po, I would be very happy to be part of that exercise should it be put in place.
Okay, that's good. Are you familiar with the setup in the Supreme Court?
By
For
set up.
example, how they decide cases, the divisions, how each division works, those
Well,
things.
only that is known to the public by way of the circulars, the memoranda, and things like that. But because we've appeared before the court, but of course the internal workings, no, not really, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, if you will be fortunate to be a member of the court, how do you intend to speed up the disposition of cases in the court?
In the Supreme Court,
Yeah,
Your
the
Honor?
Supreme Court. We're talking about the Supreme Court. Yes.
For my part, Your Honor, I will definitely diligently work on all the cases assigned to me and endeavor to finish all of them before deadline, before the due dates. I think that we will also need to revisit some of the existing rules. Baka naman ho doon sa mga pamamaraan na iyon, pwede ho tayong makamenos ng mga oras na ginugugol, no? And I think the other, this one, I just remember, no? Because one of the topics that was discussed during the PDAFPA or DAP case, and this came from former Justice Vivi Mendoza, when I think in one of his submissions, he cautioned the court in a way to be more, if I may use the term, to be more discriminating. Kasi parang lalo na ngayon, ang dami-dami pong pumapasok na file ng mga public interest cases, yung mga strategic litigation cases na tinatawag po nila. And I think that this also swamp the court and take the time of the court. There's always that issue of, is this really a case ripe for judicial review, or is it a case for judicial review? If so, is it ripe for judicial review? Pero may mga iba pong batayan ang korte, halimbawa ng transcendental importance, ganun. But because of all of this, parang naging, and then again, dahil ang tao din naman ang tingin sa Supreme Court, bastion di ba, court of last
Yes,
resort
yes.
talaga. But there must be a way by which these cases can be filtered so that yung mga talagang genuine issues, yung nagre-raise ng mga genuine issues, yun lang naman ho siguro ang dapat i-consider ng korte.
Okay. Now, Madam Chair, your record shows that in most of the offices where you work, you occupied and still to now you're occupying the top position. So you're so used to giving orders to everybody. If you will be fortunate to be nominated and appointed, you will be occupying the lowest rank in the ladder. Do you think you can adjust? to that
Definitely
situation?
po. Definitely. The positions I've held, well, they're just positions. It so happens na nasa taas po ako. Ang mandato ng opisina ko as chairperson is to be the chairman and the chief executive officer of the Commission on Audit, at siya naman pong aking kinagampanan. Kung ang aking pong susunod na appointment ay bilang Associate Justice of the Supreme Court at pinaka-junior pa, anong mandato ng opisina ko, yun po ang aking gagawin. I don't have a problem with rank.
Yeah, okay.
I don't have a problem with
So
rank.
that is good. How are you going to manage to work with the other members of the division your division where you will be assigned without affecting your independence as a member of the court?
Pwede po yun.
Yes.
Yes. I can be very gracious,
Yes.
but I am always independent-minded.
Okay, that's good.
Apa.
I'm just curious, Madam Chair. What do you consider as your strength and weakness as a person and as a public official?
As a person, my greatest strength, I would say, would be my family.
Okay.
And my big faith in God, because they just give me all the strength I need.
Yeah.
As a public official, yun din, yung aking pong paniniwala, my faith in God. Kasi mas malaki pa ho ang pressure sa public office, no?
Yes.
And that is, kailangan meron ka hong paghuhugutan. It's not something that you can get from the position itself, you know. It's got to come from inside. My weakness as both as a person and as an official, I think, and my family will attest to this, I can be very, very impatient. I push. I mean, gusto ko hong mabilisan yung ganon, no. Madali po akong magalit sa mga pasaway, sa mga tamad, sa mga epal. I'm sorry, but I have quite a low tolerance for inefficiency and incompetence. Actually, yun po ang medyo flaw ng character ko. Pag mga ganong okasyon ho, I find it very difficult to be mabait. But otherwise, I celebrate, I commend, I encourage hard work and dedication to duty. Yung resourceful, hindi ho yung nag-aantay lamang sa bureaucracia, marami po tayo niyan. Kaya kung minsan, ang tagal-tagal talaga ng mga bagay-bagay kasi nag-aantayan. Ang isip niya, ito lang trabaho ko eh. Parang katabi mo lang yun, pwede ba kalabitin mo naman, huy, nasa na yung ganito? It happens. And these are the things that really irk me. That's when I lose my patience po. Yun po ang aking weakness.
Okay. Now, I heard you made a statement earlier that you want to extend full access to justice to the poor members of society. Now, if you will be a member of the highest court of the land, how are you going to do that?
Marami na po actually ngayong mga pamamaraan and under Chief Justice Sereno, parang palpable po yung at least from where we are, on the ground. Pero as always, may mga pwede pang mas marami pa hong pwedeng gawin. I mentioned one of them kanina in terms of the legal aid. Siguro i-expand natin para hindi lang yung court representation, kundi any form of legal assistance to the poor. Pwede po yun. Tapos yung mga accredited na magbibigay ng legal aid, kasi I think right now it's just the IPP and the chapters, no? Pero marami po tayong mga ibang organizations, professional organizations na pwede rin ho sigurong magbigay nun. And not only professional regulations, but even civic and social organizations pwede. Tapos yung PAO din po natin, siguro kailangan nating i-strengthen. Yung mga abogado, siguro kailangan natin ng capacity building nila. Ako, I will be very frank, I was in private practice, and pag medyo nakakaharap namin yung mga tigapaw, halimbawa, talagang nakikita yung diferensya in terms of preparation. Minsan yung doon lang sila sa korte magkikita ng kliyente, yung mga ganun ho ba? Samantalang kami, private, no, weeks and days before, nagmi-meeting na kami ng kliyente na parang talong-talo ho talaga. So, kailangan ho siguro natin i-beef up yung kanilang capacity to be able to effectively represent poor clients.
Okay. That's supposed to be my last question, but we received questions from the Twitter.
Yes, ma'am.
From the Supreme Court Watch. From the Supreme Court Watch, they're asking us to ask you this question. For Chair PULIDO-TAN, what are the state of your caseload in COA?
Ay, nako, marami ho kaming marami ho akong dinatnan. Okay? But we have I think done a great progress. Yung aming kasi nung dumating ako may mga 2006, 2007 pa eh. Ngayon ho, tapos na namin hanggang 2010. So, kumbaga, current na din kami. Kasi 2011 po ako pumasok. We have done a lot. And in fact, I even added several divisions in our legal service para lang po matutukan po yung mga kaso.
Okay. Another question from the Supreme Court Watch. Will your move to the Supreme Court, if you will be fortunate to be appointed, slow things down in the COA?
I don't think so, Your Honor, because from day one, I already thought of the day I would leave COA. In other words, lahat po ng aking pong ginawa ay nakagear towards institutionalization. So, 3 taon na po kami, marami na rin po kaming nagawa, lahat naman po nakalatag na. And I must say that it's not just me. It's really the COANs, no, who have been very supportive. Sila rin ang nagpapalakad ng lahat ng ito. Ang akin pong ibinigay, leadership, inertia, pushing things, example, modeling, ganon. But really, yung nag-i-implement ang COA po, and I am very confident na lahat po ng aming inumpisahan at ginagawa ay maipagpapatuloy po nila maski wala na po ako doon. Unless, of course, the new chairperson will have his or her own priority agenda.
Okay. Another question, Madam Chair, from the same sender, Supreme Court Watts. For Chair Grace Tan, if appointed to the High Court, will you inhibit from Senator Jinggoy's possible cases to be filed in the Supreme Court?
I will go by the rules. Covered naman yan po yung when on the rules on inhibition. I will go by that. It's very difficult to say at this point. No? Mahirap pong mag-prejudge.
Okay.
Pero makakaasa po kayo kung ano ang batas tungkol sa inhibition, I will follow.
Okay, this is a last question from Jason Malig for Chair Grace Tan. How will you help modernize the judicial process to ease backlogs of cases?
When we talk about modernization, I think the first thing that comes to mind would be IT, no? And I think that the Supreme Court is already well into that, no? But still, there is a lot of things that we may need to do in that area. So that's one way of modernizing. The other, I think, is also reaching out to not only the lawyers and the judges and court personnel, but also litigants, no, potential litigants. In other words, yung mga tao, kailangan din po ng kanilang public awareness tungkol sa proseso ng korte. Kasi kung minsan, dahil hindi nila rin masyadong naintindihan, that's when we get perceptions of the court being inefficient or the people being corrupt. Kung minsan dahil lang po hindi masyadong naintindihan, dapat po siguro isama natin yung ordinaryong mamamayan doon sa information tungkol sa hudikatura, ano ang kanyang mandato, ano ang ginagawa natin para sa kanila.
Okay. On that note, Madam Chair, thank you very much for coming, and I wish you luck.
Thank you
We wish
very
luck.
much po.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Be careful with that. Sige. Okay. Interviewed you quite extensively for several times already. And in fact, we have nominated you, the last time we nominated you was last year for the position of presiding justice of the Sandigan Bayan. You gave a statement before those interviews. Do you want to give an additional statement now?
Thank you, Your Honor. But I just wanted to impress upon the honorable members of the JBC that as before, I am here again before the JBC to offer myself if in case the JBC decides to consider me for nomination to the President so that the President can have a wider choice of whom he may want to appoint to the Supreme Court. I am of the belief that in my years of experience, depth and breadth of experience and other factors, I am of the belief, although it may be self-serving, that I can well fulfill the big shoe of an associate judge of the Supreme Court, Your Honor.
Okay. Honorable Maria Milagros Fernan Cayosa will start the interview.
Thank you, Justice Langman. Good morning, Justice Bruselas.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Okay, well, we have interviewed you extensively less than a year ago. We take this an opportunity for you to perhaps inform us if there are any significant developments in your career as a jurist or as an educator.
Since last interview, Your Honor, that's about a year ago, the significant development that had happened is that I have been given more responsibilities. For instance, I've been asked by the court, the chief, to fly to Bucharest tomorrow for a conference on cybercrime, because after the court has upheld the constitutionality of cybercrime law, the court is looking at designating certain branches of the courts to be cybercrime courts, and in this regard, the court will need to train judges, prosecutors on this new law. And there's a conference for this purpose, a 2-day conference, which they call it the GLACY project, the global legal action on cybercrime, which will gather together the minds in the world engaged in the training of judicial and prosecutorial officers to be able to come out with a template for this purpose. And my role there as Philippine representative is to find out what can be the best practices that we can adapt for our country. The other one, Your Honor, is that, since I have been able to reduce my caseload for quite some time now, I have been able to give more attention to my job. As you know, Your Honor, I'm also with the Corps of Professors of the Philippine Judicial Academy. And lately, they have been incessantly, continuously inviting me to do this and do that. And fortunately, I had more time, so I had to give in to their request and to fulfill my duty as a member of the Corps of Professors, Your Honor. So those are the significant items that had transpired in the last year, Your Honor.
Now, you will have another 12 years if you are going to complete your career as a jurist up to the mandatory retirement age of 70. And that would give you enough time to initiate or to pursue certain advocacies that would help in the administration of justice. As far as the trial courts are concerned, what would you advocate for actively in the Supreme Court if appointed? And with respect to either procedure?
Thank you, Your Honor. As perhaps the legal community is well aware of, before Judge Abad retired, he tried to push some wide-ranging reforms. For example, he wanted to push an entire overhaul of the Code of Civil Procedure, and it's still up with the Supreme Court. But my own position, Your Honor, is that it is quite difficult to at once impose a drastic change on certain established procedures. I'm not saying that we should not go for a revision right away, but what I'm saying is we need to study these things over time. We need more heads to go over this. If given the opportunity to sit with the court, I will pursue, well, one, I have been engaged in automation. To me, automation of court processes, and as a matter of fact, right now that I've been tasked to oversee the automation of the cluster of trial courts all over the country. We have started with Quezon City. Automation of court processes will result in two things: transparency and efficiency. It will shine lights on those corners of the procedures, processes that need to be lighted. So one, to me, automation should be pursued in earnest by the court. We are quite behind in this area compared to other countries. We just visited Bosnia and Herzegovina, an eastern nation, used to be under the satellite of the Russian bloc before, but they are far ahead in terms of their court processes. They have a total of about 2,000 courts all over the country, and from the trial courts all the way to their Supreme Court, the processes are integrated. If you are a Supreme Court justice up there, you'll be able to easily access, once the case are appealed, files created down below. So paperless courts. And then, just to relate to you, Your Honor, my experience there when we went over there for a 5-6 day tour visit, there are 2,000 courts for a population of 5 million. So what does that say? The court to population ratio is very, very narrow. I think it's 1 for every 20,000. In our case, the Philippines, we have a court to population ratio because we have about, until now, there's about 2,000 plus judges. And we have about 100, almost 100 million population. So our court to population ratio is 1 is to 50,000. That is way above the world standards. World standards say that at least you should have 1 is to 20,000. Let me correct myself. I said 1 is to 20 for Bosnia. Actually, it's 1 is to 5,000 if my math is correct. No? They have 5,000 courts rather for 5 million population. So 1 is to 10,000. Despite that, they are still fully automated. Now, in our case, given this ratio of 1 is to 50,000 per population, one judge, I think automation will do a lot in trying to fill that gap. Although, in the long run, we cannot by any way escape that correct path of having more judges per population. The ideal is 1 is to 20,000. So we are actually short by 3, 4, 5,000 judges. That's why there is delay. Part of the cause of delay is the ratio of judges to population. Automation is an advocacy, an area, not really an advocacy, Your Honor, because I would say that one who sits in the bench should not have any advocacy at all. It's difficult for a justice, somebody, to come in there and have a preset mind of what to do and what not to do. What I'm saying is, a justice should have as much as possible a blank mind. If ever he has advocacies, it must only be the advocacy of ensuring that the Constitution is upheld at all times. That, to me, Your Honor, is the only advocacy that a Supreme Court justice, a judge for that matter, should have. With respect to other items like administrative efficiency, I think these are little matters that, well, should come in hand with being in the court, Your Honor. So that's it, Your Honor.
You having been a lecturer with the MCLE and also with the PhilJA, you're aware that ADR is also stressed. However, our Philippine Mediation Center is under the Philippine Judicial Academy. Do you think that this is wise? And what would you perhaps, initiate or suggest that it be done with the Philippine Mediation Center in order to strengthen the use of alternative dispute resolution?
As a matter of fact, Your Honor, it's not only that area. There is even, if you are all aware, there is even under the Department of Justice an Office of Dispute Resolution, if I'm not mistaken. But not many are aware of this. But there is in the Department of Justice an Office for Dispute Resolution. My view, Your Honor, is that this mediation office, mediation unit, the Philippine Mediation Center, should be a separate entity, separate from PhilJA, separate from DOJ. It should be allowed to exist as a separate entity with its own processes, as an adjunct to prior to litigation, parties can be, as we call it, alternative dispute resolution, Your Honor. There are many ways of settling disputes without going to courts. We have conciliation, we have arbitration, we have mediation. Then when you go to court now, you have the court-annexed mediation, we have the court-assisted mediation, etc. But with the Philippine Mediation Center, to me, if you're asking me, Your Honor, this should be a separate entity. They should house what we call the DOJ, the Office of Dispute Resolution. It should be separate, not tied up to the Supreme Court. If at all right now, it's a PhilJA, no? It's, I think, only for administrative convenience. Perhaps it should be high time to look at this and study this very well, and so that we can have a better functioning mediation process before the courts.
Well, my final question, considering that you have had 6 years experience in the Court of Appeals,
Sorry, Your Honor. It's actually, this is my 9th year, Your Honor, 9th year in the
oh,
Court
I'm
of
sorry.
Appeals.
So perhaps I may have miscomputed. At any rate, 9 years, which even bolsters the, I'm sure, the thought that you have ideas how to improve the processes also in the appellate level. As my final question, what would you suggest if you become a Supreme Court Associate Justice, to improve the process in not only in the Court of Appeals but in all appellate courts?
I know, Your Honor, that this idea of mine might not, might be in conflict with many of the ideas that are now around, but we have a Court of Appeals that is spread out over the country geographically. We have a Court of Appeals station in Cebu, Court of Appeals station in Mindanao, Guian de Oro, precisely. No? And there is a law which allowed for this. No? But if I recall correctly, that law, there's a provision there which says that, that calls for the Supreme Court to form a committee to study the feasibility of adopting a regional-wide Court of Appeals. So in other words, what we have right now, until now, a Court of Appeals station in Cebu and Davao, these are actually preliminary steps. We need to validate, we need to find out through a process, a rigorous process, of whether it is still effective and efficient for a Court of Appeals to be spread out all over the country. My view, Your Honor, I know that this is something that has been thought of by our lawmakers, but there have been problems in the past that arose out of this. When you have a Court of Appeals that is too close to the ground, that regional trial court, first and second level courts, it's all right. They should be spread all over the country. But remember, the job of the Court of Appeals is simply to review cases. And it is appeal process in general before the stations were established. Appeals used to be brought up only by mail, brought up. And now with automation, we did not need to even do that. It can be pushed from anywhere you may be. And if need be, records can be posted to the mail if necessary. So to me, Your Honor, if ever, I think I will ask that we re-examine this and find out whether we still have to really maintain or expand or not. Right now, as it is, Your Honor, if you talk about caseloads, the caseload of the entire Court of Appeals all over the Philippines, 60 to 70% are in Manila. About 20 in 25 in Cebu, and 15 thereabouts in Cagayan de Oro. That's the caseload of the Court of Appeals. So, if you look at it, Your Honors, in fact, there was a study made by a group, engineering study made by a group from UP, that said, if at all you want to have stations of Court of Appeals in the provinces, you only need one based on the caseload. You only need one in Cebu, one division in Cebu, and one division in the Cagayan de Oro area. But as I said, Your Honor, we have to really validate. The court has to form that committee and again look at these studies and determine for itself whether it will be effective for having a Court of Appeals in those areas in the provinces. That is an area which, to my mind, Your Honor, has to be looked into. The other one is in the Court of Appeals main. There is well, I have just been told that there is a plan to reorganize the divisions, the Judicial Records Division of the Court of Appeals, into one of having a team approach, where a team of staff processors composed of records officers, etc., will be assigned to a group of 3 justices to a division, and that they will be forever bound together. Now, if we have not taken this up yet in bank, but I believe this should be studied well, because this does not augur well for a good functioning Court of Appeals. I do not know why that came up, but I asked that I'll ask our PJ that we should look at this from the perspective of the bank. This cannot just be done like that, because you just imagine having a team of 5 clerks assigned to 3 justices forever. So I do not know what is the positive aspect there, but I certainly see something very negative. So that one is I will look into it, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justice Bruselas. As I mentioned, that was my last question, and good luck.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Justice Lagman. I have no
Okay.
further questions.
Honorable Sebi Mejia will also ask you some questions.
Thank you, Justice Lagman. Good morning, Justice Bruselas.
Morning to Your Honor.
In the nomination letter signed by Justice Gia Salvador, she stated that you will be an asset to the Supreme Court. in what specific way um, uh, do you think you'll be an asset to the Supreme Court?
Let me answer that question, Your Honor, because I remember that question can be also framed in a different way. I think it was the Honorable Justice Lagman who asked the point-blank question last time. Oh, why you? Why should the JBC or the President get you and appoint you? In a nutshell, I think that's the question that is being asked, Your Honor. And let me answer that because that's a very self-serving, the answer will be very self-serving, and actually it's more of a self-confidence question. Let me answer that with a very candid but humble. I respectfully believe, Your Honor, that I should be chosen because of the following parameters, Your Honor. From the point of view of depth and breadth of experience. Second, from the point of view of curricular and extracurricular performance. Third, from the point of view of proven competence, integrity, probity, and independence. And fourth, from the point of view of what can be contributed to the court, I can contribute a national security perspective. Later on, I'll explain it, Your Honor. And fifth, recognition. I have been nationally recognized by having been given an award for judicial excellence by the Foundation for Judicial Excellence in the Supreme Court, Your Honor. So these 5 parameters. What's the depth and breadth of my experience? I was in private practice for 3 years, and then I spent 2 years in the armed forces, Your Honor, and then I spent 8 years as a prosecutor, 8 years as a trial court judge, and now 9 years as Court of Appeals Justice. These were not years which were merely lackadaisical years. These were years impressed with certain recognitions. I was recognized as a trial judge, best trial judge, as recognized as a standing prosecutor. And with respect to curricular and extracurricular performance, Your Honor, I think my records, which are under oath, say that I'm not at the bottom of the class. In fact, I've finished at the upper quartile, upper quintile, from elementary up to the college level. And then, side by side with the curricular performance, I have had extracurricular activities all throughout college life. And then, from the point of view, Your Honor, of demonstrated competence, integrity, probity, and independence, I believe that through the cases which I have decided, Your Honor, which most of them have been 92% have been affirmed by the Supreme Court, they do say a story. And how do we assess a person's, as the Constitution says, proven competence, integrity, probity, and independence? You can only assess that by actual duty at the bench and a similar situation. Through their decisions, they may not be in the papers, they may not be broadcasted, but they are there for everybody to read. And then from the point of view of contribution, Your Honor, I have the unique, among the 13 of us, I have the unique ability to be able to contribute to the court, if ever allowed to sit with them, a national security perspective. Not from the top, but obtained from the ground, because I serve in the field, Your Honor. And that is a unique, something that the others cannot contribute. I have that perspective from the bottom going up. No? And then, lastly, Your Honor, as I said, I've been nationally recognized as a judicial excellence awardee, Your Honor, which I believe none of the others have had attained. And just to summarize, Your Honor, I'd rather say that I have been a self-made man, Your Honor. I have worked my way to law school, and it is tough to be in law school. It's even tougher to be working full-time and studying law at the same time. So to me, this honed up my experience, and to me, as I said, depth and breadth of experience. Thank you, Your Honor.
You made mention earlier of your experience during that tour, no, and your observations in Bosnia-Herzegovina, where you actually observe, no, their system of automation. Do you think the culture and nature of the citizens of that particular country, as compared to the Philippines, is comparable? Meaning, what is their litigious nature? Are they as litigious as, for example, Filipinos? And what will be the role of automation if one has to consider the cultural, workings of the Filipinos?
The short, I must be very frank, Your Honor, that short stay that we had there didn't give us enough ammunition, so to speak, to be able to make such an evaluation of whether they are litigious culture. But from the volume of their cases that they are handling, I would say that they are not much less of a litigious nation than we are, except that there are fewer of them. There are only 5 million, we have 100 million. So that's my answer, Your Honor.
In 2009, an article was published by ABS-CBN News, no? Concerning your ruling on the case of the Legacy Group. No? In that news article, you were described to be known for your integrity. What are your thoughts on the role of media vis-a-vis the judiciary?
I respectfully believe, Your Honor, that the media should be allowed as much access as possible to the judiciary. And automation is along this line. They did not come to the courts. They can just view it on their, open their computers, view what is ever, and surf the websites of the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, and the regional trial courts once these are up. So media should be given as much as possible access to the courts so that because there are also good elements and bad elements as everywhere else, so that the bad elements will have difficulty in just believing what is dished out to them. Because after all, available information is available to them. That to me is what we should engage. The court should be more engaging in media through the formal channels. We have the Public Information Office, and of course, automation, Your Honor. That to me is what should be taken. The court because the courts traditionally have been quiet all the time. They would rather have their decisions be read and interpreted. What I'm advocating, what I'm saying right now, Your Honor, is more than that. We should allow media to look at our processes, short of getting them into our deliberative processes. But allow them how things are done and let them publish it. This is how it's done. This is the step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because a lot of our citizens are not even aware of step 1 to 5. They depend on their lawyers and other things, Your Honor. So with media's help, perhaps we can broaden the understanding of our people with respect to judicial processes.
That was my final question. Thank you and good luck, Justice Bruselas. Thank you, Justice Lagman.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Now, in my case, as I've stated before, we have extensively interviewed Justice Bruselas. First, in connection with this application also for the post of an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. And second, in connection with this application for the post of Presiding Justice of the Sandigan Bayan, where he was nominated. Insofar as I'm concerned, my record shows that Justice Bruselas has sufficiently established his qualifications for the post of Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. Aside from the fact that I know him personally as we work together in the same division in the Court of Appeals, I'm aware of his work ethics, his integrity, and his dedication to his job. However, Justice Bruselas, we received some questions from the Twitter, which I would like to ask you. Now, as an Associate Justice of the Court of Appeals, how do you deal with influence peddlers? This was sent by a certain Ruel.
The policy that first in my staff, you have to be clear with your staff because they're the ones who
Yes.
are with you all the time. The policy that I convey to my staff is that no litigants, no lawyers can come to the court directly. If they have questions, they deal with our division clerk of court, if ever. So that one is already not a perimeter, but a clear policy that cases will not be decided and resolved on the basis of how you are able to penetrate the
Yes.
court. That's one. The second one, Your Honor, is when there are calls made, I have a cell phone, and invariably there are calls that I receive that I do not know the that is the calls that are not in my directory. So I
Yeah.
simply do not answer them. That is my rule. My cell phone our number is supposed to be not to be restricted, but we do not know because when we fill up certain data sheets, the cell phones are broadcasted all over. So we cannot really, unless we change numbers all the time. So that's the
Yeah.
second rule. I do not answer calls from just anybody. Calls that come in from the division chair, presiding justice, the formal work group, then of course we answer that. And
Yeah.
then thirdly, Your Honor, my my I simply I have a different I try to live a it may be to others they may say that you're antisocial, but it's not really being antisocial. It's simply because you chose a life to be in the bench. You simply have to live that life. So what does it mean? As much as possible, I try to restrict socialization because invariably when you are socializing too much, you will encounter many, many parties who have problems. And before you know it, they will be talking to you about this and that case. In that case, in those situations, I simply shy away and say, listen politely, and then excuse myself. That's how I try to solve that problem of influence coming to us.
Okay, this is the second question from the Twitter. Although we received this yesterday, but I think I want to ask you this question from Pauline Tamaray. What are your thoughts on the decriminalization of libel?
Um, just the other day, I read in the papers that one of the advocates of decriminalizing libel, Senator Coco Pimentel, has decided to withdraw his sponsorship. I don't know because of one reason or the other. My own view is that the court has the Supreme Court through several cases has has advised trial courts to look at libel more from the civil perspective. That's why there is a suggestion, although the court cannot decriminalize the libel, suggestions been made with the Supreme Court that in those cases of libel where they find the accused guilty, they, as much as possible, they just impose the penalty of a fine. But of course, the courts are not, shall we say, compelled to do that. If they find a necessity, they can impose both imprisonment and fine. My own thought on the matter, I do believe that freedom is not absolute. There is even the Constitution says that there is a limit to free speech and free press. One does not say fire and escape liability if people get injured running out of this place. So to me, libel, decriminalizing libel should be made in phases. We cover the areas of what can be in other words, look at libel law, Article 35354, and look at it, at how we can reduce the harsh effects of making it criminal. To me, decriminalizing it outright may work more to a more disorderly society. We are not, our culture, as pointed out by the Honorable Justice Attorney Jose Mejia, is quite different. The Caucasians, the Europeans, to them, perhaps, yes, they need that. Do not need those things, but they are very free. They need not have strict laws, criminal laws against expression of freedom. No? But in our case, I think we still have to look at the maturation process of our citizens. We can see that now in what we are being entertained in the media, na police list, what is list, those several lists. Those things are manifestations of a very free society. And nobody's being brought to court for libel. So just imagine if you removed libel law.
Yeah.
That's why, Your Honor, it needs to be studied further, Your Honor.
Okay. On that note, we wish you luck, Justice Bruselas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. It's
Okay.
my honor to be with the JBC. Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Appeals is ready to be interviewed.
Good morning, Justice Hernando. For the record, would you please say something about yourself?
Thank you, ma'am. I'm currently the chairman of the 20th Division of the Court of Appeals, which is stationed in Cebu City. Although I'm only 47, I'm actually on my sixth decade of my life here on Earth, having been born in the 60s, Your Honor, in 1966. I'm married to a fellow lawyer who works at the Ombudsman, and I've been with the Court of Appeals for over 4 years now. I was a trial court judge for close to 7 years before joining the Appellate Court. And before that, Your Honor, I was a state prosecutor in the Department of Justice. I actually started my service in government in 1991 with the Office of Justice Edgardo Paras as a confidential assistant. I stayed with him for about a year, and when he retired, I transferred to the Office of Justice Regalado, with whom I worked for close to 6 years. And apart from my work in the public sector, I'm also very active in the academe, Your Honor. For as long as I have been in the practice of law, I've taught in several law schools. I've taught in Metro Manila-based law schools like San Beda College, UST, FEU, and San Sebastian. For a time, I also taught at Angeles University Foundation in Angeles City. And I've also taught law in Cagayan de Oro when I was stationed in the Mindanao Station of the Court of Appeals for about a year. And also presently in Cebu, in San Carlos University, Your Honor. I've been teaching for close to about 22 years. These were interrupted by 2 years of commission in the bar examinations. I was bar examiner in commercial law in 2009 and also in 2011.
Okay. Honorable Maria Milagros Fernan Cayosa will start the interview.
Thank you, Justice Langman. Good morning, Justice Hernando.
Good morning po.
Again, I will have to divulge that we are both from the same IBP chapter, Cagayan.
Yes, ma'am.
At any rate, we requested for the records of the Court of Appeals as it regards case disposal, and we note that you are number one in case disposal, having disposed of 417 cases in 2013 alone, which brought your cases submitted for decision to 0. You were able to wipe out the caseload of those that need to be decided on the merits. While you have a case disposal rate that is very high, it's noted also that at 47, you are the youngest applicant and the most junior among the Court of Appeals aspirants. Now, what made you decide to accept the nomination and aspire for the Supreme Court?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, I think 47 is not really a young age. And my hope is that it's a good thing from the perspective of the council. When I first applied for a position in the bench, I was only 36, Your Honor, when I applied for an RTC slot, and I was appointed at 37. And when I applied for a seat in the Court of Appeals, I was only 42 and got the appointment at 43. I see an inclination on the part of the council at this time to tap young blood, so to speak. And I think 47 is an age in which I can say that I will be able to physically undertake the very rigorous job of a Supreme Court magistrate. And it's also an age in which I can say that I would be mature enough to be able to know how to get the job done competently, intelligently, and with all the other requisites of being one on the bench. And with regard to my acceptance of the nomination, the first thing that came to my mind, really, Your Honor, is the reason why I accepted is that at first blush, it was really a personal thing. I really just wanted to see my mother, see my name on the roster of these. But beyond that, Your Honor, my work in the Court of Appeals is something that's the judicial rulings that we render in the appellate court have limited social, political, and economic impact on the nation's on the nation in general, unlike that of a ruling of the Supreme Court. It's been said that a decision of the Supreme Court is really, in effect, a policy-making decision, and to that extent, a justice who sits on the court who would get to render decisions that impact on the social, economic, and political life of the nation is a greater role to play. I would like to play that role, Your Honor. And just last week, I was reading a memoir of the famed Filipino journalist Nelson Navarro. A mentor of him said to him, bloom where you are planted. And I would love, not just like to bloom here in the High Court. Early on, my father, who had been a judge, instilled in me a very positive ideal of the court. It's something he said to me that I could have a lifelong interest in. And when I was taken in by Justices Paras and Regalado, those ideals were firmly rooted in me. And so I'm now here, Your Honor, to press my cause.
Having served the judiciary for more than 11 years now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and since you started as an RTC judge in 2003, where do you see the appellate courts, from this point insofar as promoting ethics among lawyers? I know it's rather far-fetched, but I am referring to the procedure in the Court of Appeals. What do you think should be changed in order to ensure that lawyers, practice ethics in the cases that they are handling in the Court of Appeals?
We have transparency systems in the court at the moment, Your Honor. We have this CIMIS or CAMIS. It's an information system where litigants can go to a kiosk, a computer really, and just access the development of the case in which they are involved in. This is one area where a lawyer may not possibly think of dirty tactics by claiming, let's say, that he has gotten in touch with court personnel with respect to a particular case, because the litigant himself or herself can actually access the case in which he or she is involved in through that means. And also it's very important, Your Honor, and I myself do this, to instill in the court personnel a sense of devotion to duty by example. I think it's also very important to have constant dialogue with the bar, Your Honor. This is actually done in IBP Cebu. They're very active there. We just had a dialogue about, I think, 5 or 6 months ago, and it was an occasion in which they were able to trash out some problems that they felt they were encountering with the Court of Appeals.
Now, what are these measures that you would want to see if you are in the court that would be instituted in appellate courts so that well, for instance, I am aware that in Cebu they have an electronic a raffling of cases. Do you think that this should be institutionalized in all appellate courts?
Yes, it should be, by all means, Your Honor. At the moment, the Cebu station is the only one among the three stations in the appellate court that has the e-filing or e-raffling measure that's open to the public. And litigants who, almost always the litigants who are present are those who are seeking TROs, Your Honor, because these are urgent matters that have to be dealt with, and they're there, and they're able to observe the objectivity and fairness of the system visually.
Now, like you mentioned in your PDS, you have a zero backlog. So you have resolved all of the cases that have been submitted for decision. In equalizing, the tasks in the Court of Appeals, what would you propose as a process for those who are masipag, those who are diligent in being able to dispose of their cases, so that there is no hurt feelings when you are to be given additional load if you are able to resolve? How should this system be instituted so that the cases are fairly distributed among the associate justices?
Yes, ma'am. What's peculiar about the Court of Appeals is that we have three stations, and we follow the geographical scheme as to the locations of these stations, in the sense that a junior member gets to be in the most far-flung area, Mindanao, at the outset, and then he or she would then move to Cebu, and then to Manila eventually, based on vacancies at the upper strata. The problem, this is based on my personal experience, Your Honor, because when I came into the court via the CDO station, I was given an initial caseload of 350. And when I moved to Cebu, I was then, I left behind whatever were left unresolved in Mindanao, but then I was given a heavier load of 600. And if I were to move to Manila, I could do so now because I'm now senior, Your Honor. If I would move to Manila, I would only be given 250. So a justice in the Visayas station may possibly move to Manila within a year and would not have disposed, let's say, only about 15 or 20% of his initial caseload. But then when he moves to Manila, he will get a very fair deal, as he would only be given 250. There was a proposal that was introduced by the retired Justice Mario Guariña. We call it the Guariña formula, Your Honor. But I don't think it has been implemented by the current presiding justice for various reasons. Not really for reasons we do not know, but I think he has reasons of his own for not adopting that formula. In the Visayas station, what we have done, at least during the last 3 years that I have been there, is that on a yearly basis, we adopted equalization schemes. And I voluntarily took part in all those equalization schemes, Your Honor. A justice who comes from CDO would get 600, and the others who have been there would get to unload some of their caseload to the incoming justice. But in 2011, 2012, and 2013, we adopted several or a number of equalization schemes where even if I have disposed a greater number of cases, I volunteered to take in some SD cases, those that are submitted for decision, just so we could bring down the number of cases that have been submitted for decision, which really have been languishing for not even years but decades, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justice Hernando. My last question. If appointed to the court, shortlisted and appointed to the court, you will have another 23 years in the High Court. Besides finishing your caseload to ensure that there is no backlog, what would be something that you would want to leave behind as your legacy in the Supreme Court when you retire?
In a nutshell, Your Honor, I would say, and I would want to be remembered as someone who really did all that he could do in light of my very lofty sense of devotion to duty, and that I have applied the rule of law to the best that I could.
So with that, Justice Hernando, I wish you luck. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Justice Langman.
Okay. Honorable Sebi Mejia will also ask you some questions.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Justice Lagman. Good morning, Justice Hernando.
Good morning, sir.
I'm just curious, at what point in your life did you decide to become a lawyer?
I think it has always been a subconscious thing, Your Honor, because my father was a lawyer, and the courthouse in our hometown of Tuguegarao was only a few hundred feet away from our residence, and I practically grew up in a lawyer's house, Your Honor. I really couldn't say the
Actually,
time.
I'm asking that because I was fascinated to find out in your PDS that you actually finished literature in college.
Yes, sir.
And then there is always this issue about, or not exactly an issue. What do you call this? This question as to which is the best preparatory course for the law school. I just wanted to know if you thought that a course that had nothing to do really with law would best prepare you for the law school, or something that has something to do with law, like legal management, political science. May I just have your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yes, sir. It was actually my mother who inveigled me into enrolling in literature, Your Honor, because she had been a literature professor. And she felt that with a full range of development, not just in the sciences but in the arts, I could be a better person and a better lawyer.
In the other credentials portion of your PDS, you noted that you were ranked first, and this was touched on earlier, but let me just delve into it again. In terms of case disposal for 2013 and 2012 in the Court of Appeals, there have been questions as to whether high case disposition rates affect the quality of the ponencias. What are your thoughts on this matter?
Yes, sir. I've disposed of 948 decisions, full-blown decisions, Your Honor. There has never been any dissent on the part of my colleagues. I think that's an indicator of the quality of decisions that I've rendered. And as to decisions of mine that have been appealed to the Supreme Court, I actually have a 100% batting average. It's not 70 out of 72 as indicated in my PDS, Your Honor. There has been no reversal of any of my ponencias in the Supreme Court. More than the statistics, I actually put in longer hours. I'm at that stage of my life where I can still work very hard, put in longer hours, Your Honor. In Cebu, because my residence there is only 5 minutes away from the courthouse, I bring my work home, and I work until about 10 p.m., wake up at 6, go to court at 8. So there's not a slapdash thing that I do when it comes to decision making. I discuss the draft decisions with my court attorneys. There are 6 of them, Your Honor. Although in the plantilla of a CA justice has 4 court attorneys, many lawyers in Cebu want to join the court such that they even accept executive assistant positions. So I have 6 lawyers, Your Honor, and that explains to a large extent the big number of disposition that I have.
You have published an article and conducted a lecture on judicial affidavit rule. In your opinion, are the areas of improvement for this? Are there areas of improvement for this rule? Has it helped in addressing the issues of case congestion or the congestion and delay?
Yes, sir. I was actually in the subcommittee of the rules on revision of the civil procedure that drafted the judicial affidavit rule, Your Honor. Early on, we felt that with respect to the application of the rule to criminal actions, there should be a clearer or a delineation of the time when an accused can choose to avail of the option to submit a judicial affidavit. Because at the moment, under the rule, an accused can opt to submit a judicial affidavit within 10 days after receiving the judicial affidavits of the prosecution. And at the subcommittee level, it was the firm opinion of Justice Abad, to which some of us had reservations really, that if an accused would not opt to submit a judicial affidavit, then he has effectively waived his right to present his evidence. We adopted that as a consensus amongst us, but in the course of my many lectures on the rule, in orientations for newly appointed judges, and in the prejudicial program, and even in MCLE, there has been a common, not really a negative observation in respect of that, because the main observation has been that that rule tends to derogate on the constitutional right of an accused to confront the witnesses against him. So I think the jar should be very clear in stating that the accused should have the right to submit the judicial affidavit at least after the prosecution has rested its case. Because at the moment, Your Honor, that option to submit judicial affidavits takes place before pretrial. But it should be done after the prosecution has rested its case.
On a more personal matter, you were appointed to the Court of Appeals in 2010, and you have been a member of 2 divisions outside of Metro Manila in CDO and in Cebu. Considering that your colleagues who are more junior are already back in Manila, is it a personal choice on your part to be assigned and not to be assigned back to Manila?
Yes, it is, Your Honor. Cebu is one of the nicest places on earth. It really feels like nagbabakasyon lang po yung pagtatrabaho dun. I think that also one reason why I have a creditable record of case disposition. There's also really another reason, Your Honor. My wife had intended to join me there because we want to have a baby eventually, Your Honor.
Thank you. Some of the questions I have in mind have already been addressed earlier, so that's my final question. Good luck, Justice Hernando, and thank you, Justice Lagman.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Justice Hernando, as stated by Attorney Mejia, you were appointed in the Court of Appeals in 2010.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what are your thoughts regarding seniority in appointments to positions in the judiciary?
Seniority should only be one factor, Your Honor. It should really be merit-based progression. Vertical movement should be based on merit. Of course, it's a given that a more senior member has more experience, but it really depends on the quality of that experience that is given at the court, Your Honor.
Now, if you are a member of the JBC, what do you think should be the best criteria in choosing a nominee for a post or for the post of Associate Justice of the Supreme Court?
Your Honor, beyond the usual attributes of competence, intelligence, impartiality, and independence, an ideal justice of the Supreme Court should be someone who has an utter devotion to the rule of law. I've seen some members of the bench who, while ostensibly appearing to be competent, impartial, and independent, some of them have committed trivial infractions like traffic violations, Your Honor. I think that's not a good example of one who is in the bar, or I mean in the bench. Somebody who has a real sense of what he does in the court, Your Honor, which is to administer justice in accordance with the rule of law.
So, Justice Hernando, I'm just curious, what do you wish to achieve if we will be fortunate to be nominated and appointed as a member of the highest court of the land?
While if given that very privileged opportunity, Your Honor, while I would be only one of 15, my hope is that I would be able to achieve a vision of a judiciary that is very impartial. The public has access to it. And public awareness of the court's role in the nation's development would be very high. My thinking, Your Honor, is that case delays have always been laid at the doorstep of courts. But this should not be so, because the court is only one of the 5 pillars of the criminal justice system. I think the public should be made aware that it is not only the court that is the sole function of administering justice, but that there are other external systems that can affect case disposition. For instance, the Department of Justice. The prosecution is part of the justice system, Your Honor. The DILG, through its management of the jails, also has a big role in administering in the administration of justice. And I would want to see a judiciary whose role in the public's eye is very defined, Your Honor.
Okay. In certain cases in the past, there had been conflicting views and rulings made by the Supreme Court. If you will be fortunate to be a member of the court, what would you suggest to avoid such conflicting views and rulings?
Consistency has to be adopted, Your Honor. In fact, that's in the internal rules of the Supreme Court now, in respect of resolutions and motions for reconsideration. I think it's a given that there should be consistency so that there would be stability in the law. Decisions of the Supreme Court are part of the legal system of the country, and adherence to precedents should be strictly followed by the courts, Your Honor, by the Supreme Court in particular, it being the court of last resort.
Now, to your mind, Justice Hernando, what do you think is the most important role of an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court?
He should be in a very tangible and also intangible sense the embodiment of the rule of law, Your Honor, and which is why it's very essential that he's someone who not only has competence but who radiates impartiality and independence.
Okay. I think I don't have any more questions for Justice Hernando. Okay. So on that note, Justice Hernando, we have interviewed you in the past. We thank you for coming.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, and we wish you luck. Good
Thank you,
luck.
Your Honors.
Okay. Yes, Justice Cruz, please sit down.
Your Honors, next to be interviewed is Associate Justice Stephen C. Cruz of the Court of Appeals.
Our record shows, Justice Cruz, that the last time you were interviewed by the JBC was on May 18, 2011.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. So, for the record, will you please give a brief statement about yourself?
Brief statement. Well, I graduated law school 1976 from the Ateneo. Took up the bar in 77. Had a short stint with the legal office at Malacanang. Then after 2 years, I engaged in the private practice of law until I got appointed in year 2000 as regional trial court judge in Lucena City. After 6 years, I was fortunately appointed as Court of Appeals Justice until now, and proceeding with my career path.
So that's it. Okay. Now, Honorable Maria Milagros Fernan Cayosa, who will ask you some questions.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justice Lagman. Good
Thank you.
morning, Justice Cruz.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Yes, as Justice Lagman noted, you were last interviewed in 2011.
That's correct.
And there were, well, 2 instances where there were vacancies in the Supreme Court. What made you decide to consider being an applicant or an aspirant this time?
Although there is only one vacancy, and a very tight one, I find it that I have to apply for that position pursuant to my career path in the judiciary, in order not to stagnate and move on. And the next logical step would be to seek higher position, as any other ordinary lawyer like me would like to dream about, is to be a member of the Supreme Court at the end of the day and before you retire.
What do you set forth on the table to present before the council as your significant contribution should you be nominated and appointed to the Supreme Court? Is it with respect to court management, certain doctrines? What do you think would be your significant contribution to the court if appointed?
Yes, sir. Very good question, Your Honor. Since my start of my career in the judiciary, that was in the year 2000, and before that in the practice of law, I have seen so many reforms introduced already. And to add another one in the long stream of reforms would be a so-called a big risk in order to overturn the most successful ones. But offhand, in my readings, I have two in mind. Firstly, regarding the time frame in which a trial goes from day one up to judgment day. It will take about 3 to 5 years to do it. One contribution that I have in mind is that a lot of time has been consumed in the deciding phase, meaning the judge, after trial and everything, and every evidence has been allowed or admitted, have to decide the case, and that usually takes about a year or two to do it. How do you shorten that period? Because cases being submitted for decision piles up every day. One of my thinking about that is it has been done in the labor arbitration stages wherein parties are required to submit their version of the decision, meaning drafts decision are submitted. And in order for a check and balance to be in order is for the other party to comment on the draft decision of the other party, like in the form of quote-unquote motion for reconsideration. Then the judge will see the bird's eye view of both sides who commented on the other. With that, having a very perspective eye view of the case before him, can easily decide one or the other. Thank you, Your Honor.
I noticed that in your personal data sheet, you divulged that you are a member of the New York State Bar.
That's correct.
Did you have any occasion to practice in New York?
Practice, meaning handling cases and everything, I haven't, because that was only a fallback position during that time. It was 1982, I think, when I was admitted, and that was before the revolution. And things there at that time are not looking so bright. Thank God that the revolution came about and it changed everything. So that fallback option never came to be.
So I guess that explains why in your professional experience there's a gap, because you only stated 86. I'm sorry, about the time that you took the.
I was practicing here, Your Honor.
Okay, now from the perhaps even if you had not the occasion to actively handle cases in New York, you have an idea of the difference
Oh, yes,
of
yes.
our court system. And given your knowledge of how things are done in New York, what do you think should we look into as far as civil procedure is concerned, vis-a-vis the proposal submitted by Justice Abad before his retirement on the revisions on the rules of civil procedure?
The civil procedure, as I see now, is quite perfect. It's a working machine. And to make shortcuts or whatnot would, to my opinion, worsen the problem. The reforms introduced in our civil procedures are very laudable. In fact, they cut time and effort, but still respect the rule of law and due process. I would be scared that by cutting it further would jeopardize due process and the administration of justice. So the thing that could be introduced to streamline civil procedure is to lessen the workload, meaning the physical workload of judges, just like requiring parties to submit draft decisions and comments thereon. So the judges can have the, as I've said, bird's eye view based on evidence introduced during trial.
Moving on
Thank you,
to
Your
another.
Honor.
Thank you, Justice. Now, moving on to another topic with respect to determining the performance of judges and justices. What would you think of if we come up with a system of rating judges and justices in terms of their performance, not only with their case disposal, but also as regards their deportment in court and generally how they are perceived in public? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there is a rule in, I think, remedial law that judges should be impartial. And not only that, he must look impartial. So it's the deportment and what's inside his conscience. The two must go together. Because if you will be partial within you, but you look to the public that you are impartial, you won't be really administering justice. So in case of impartiality, the judge must be impartial and must look impartial.
One step further, so how should a judge look impartial?
That's one of the setbacks of being a judge. You are not sociable, really. You cannot attend parties, cocktails, left and right. You must choose your company. And in fact, you must choose them wisely, so you just go along the lines of your fellow justices and members of the judiciary. Because if somebody would see you with a well-known politician or a well-known attorney from a well-known law office, although you're not doing anything wrong, perception is also essential, that you must be perceived to be impartial.
You finished law at the Ateneo de Manila, and there are Ignatian ideals. What to you is the concept of an Ignatian lawyer, and how has this influenced
Litigation lawyer.
Ignatian and
Ignatian,
yes.
Ignatius. Yes.
yes, Ignatius. How has this influenced you as a jurist generally?
I am guided by the principle that what is morally correct is legally correct. So what is immoral is also illegal, of course with exceptions. You cannot go against your conscience and your determination of what's right and wrong in the light of your legal studies or when you were studying as a law in the Ateneo. So basically, morality and legality would be, as a general rule, synonymous.
So, while you were born and raised, I believe, in Manila, you opted a station
Lucena.
in Lucena.
I was born in UST Hospital. My mother delivered me there, but she is from Lucena. So I was born in Manila, but grew up in Lucena and studied my elementary and high school in Lucena.
So what has it been like for you to try the stations in Cagayan de Oro and Cebu? There are those who feel that all offices of the Associate Justices, no, there should be no stations, or if in the regions, so that all of the cases brought on appeal before the Court of Appeals should be decided here in Metro Manila. What are your thoughts on that?
The maintenance of the Cagayan de Oro and Cebu stations were there for practical purposes. I have read that so that lawyers would not have the agony of going to and from Manila just to file cases and everything. But in this day and age, I would think that technology, especially in communication, has overcome the purpose for which it was established. Especially so when the Supreme Court is trying to introduce a paperless kind of litigation. By just one stroke of the mouse, you could send pleadings to and from your office. And that, in my opinion, defeats the offices established there. Thank you, Your Honor.
Justice, my final question. How's your health?
I'm good. But just because of gravity, I have to be sagging here and there.
And the travel between Manila and Cebu, does that affect you?
It does not. When I was there, I enjoyed flying. I enjoyed the travel. That's it.
Okay. Well, I know you are aware that being physically fit is one of the requirements, so it's
Yes.
imperative that we give you an opportunity.
I try to be physically fit, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you, Justice Cruz.
Thank
That
you,
was my
Your
last
Honor.
question.
Thank you,
Thank
Your
you, Justice Lagman.
Honorable Jose V. Mejia will also ask you some questions.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justice Lagman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Still morning, Justice Cruz.
Good morning, sir.
When you had that dilemma, given the circumstances in which you were in the, I think 82, that was still, we were still
Marcos regime, yeah, Marcos time.
Did you also, having applied for the New York bar, did you also ever consider applying for a citizenship in the U.S.?
It never crossed my mind, Your Honor.
Okay. How has that helped you, your stint in the New York bar, with your present career now as a Court of Appeals Justice?
It widened my horizon, especially knowing that there is also a set of laws elsewhere that you have to know. That the lawyer in the Philippines need not to be confined with our own set of laws. You have to compare with others and look for the best position.
Um, you were also a member of the Provincial Jail Monitoring Committee
Yes,
up
Your
to 2006. Do you still monitor the state of our jails? Do they get enough attention from the judiciary?
The provincial jail in Lucena is an old one, Spanish era. It was built to contain about just 300 inmates. During my time, the detained persons there were over 1,000. So how do you squeeze the extra 800 into a 300 capacity jail? The quadrangle there, which is supposed to be for relaxation of prisoners, were reduced into a small half-court basketball court instead of a full court.
Should you become,
I was convincing the governor to build a new facility, but according to them, that's beyond their means. I mean, they could not spend all their budget for a new provincial jail. So, as things were then, I had to coordinate with the judges in the RTC of Lucena and tell them that you release detained prisoners that's supposed to be released, those that's supposed to have rendered or served their sentence. So we have to have a review or an audit of all the prisoners. And we did that. We have reduced it to 1/3, but still the problem goes on because people get detained as they pass by. And it congests the jail. Until recently, if Your Honor, please allow me, news broke out in Lucena wherein there was a riot that occurred and deaths were many. So that proves the point that we need really to decongest provincial jails.
with regards to your current teaching load, you seem to have concentrated on teaching sales.
Only, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
Have you not considered?
No, that's for convenience purpose because I know what I teach my students, and I know that they would benefit from it instead of, let's say, venturing into constitutional law. Honestly, I have to study constitutional law again and update myself, and that would require a big chunk of my time, unlike sales, which I've been teaching since 1992 and updated at that. I find it easy to impart that knowledge to law students.
No, I'm sure when you teach, you do not confine yourself strictly to the teaching of sales. I'm sure you
Yes.
also give, nuggets of wisdom, so to speak, for law students in inspiring them to become good lawyers. What do you basically tell them?
I tell them the pros and cons of a decision. I tell them that this could be the majority opinion now, but because of a very nice or strong dissent given by a justice, this might be the majority later on. So I try to explain to them the intricacies of both. So then I tell them that if you become lawyers and you come across such kind of a problem, maybe it's your turn to go up to the Supreme Court and make the minority view the majority.
We are, I understand, on live streaming, and there are some people, surprisingly, who are following us. So maybe it's your opportunity to tell the public why you deserve a slot in the Supreme Court.
I would contribute what I know to judicial reforms, especially so when the courts from the lower court up to the Supreme Court are clogged. In fact, aside from what I said to Madam Justice Cayosa, that we can require parties to submit draft decision, I have also one second thing in mind, but I'm just toying with the idea and I want to share it with you, Your Honors, please. Would be the feasibility of creating a constitutional court. I know that today our Supreme Court is the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court. But if you would compare or study other countries, they have a constitutional court aside from the regular Supreme Court. Maybe under the principle of division of labor, we could give the Constitutional Court a try, like deciding constitutional issues and treaties. In fact, if Your Honor, please, again, I think the electoral tribunals is a form of a specialized constitutional court. We have it. It deals with the qualifications of members of the representative of Congress and Senate. Without those electoral tribunals, it is the Supreme Court who would take the cudgels and decide that. It has been done. But because of the clogging again, maybe a deep, in-depth study of how a constitutional court can help declog our dockets is worth taking or looking into. I have compared it with the Thailand Constitutional Court, which, according to the news, ousted the present Prime Minister, just like that. That would be a good one if we could have it here, or study it at the least. Also, there is a comment regarding the setting up of a constitutional court. Some schools of thought would say that that will be the fourth power. Instead of the three separation of power, there will be no four separation of powers, and the constitutional court would be the most powerful among the four. But the solution there is really easy. You just click the powers and make it special like the electoral tribunals, and rid of the Supreme Court the time so much spent on constitutional or unconstitutional issues.
That will be all, Justice Cruz, and thank you and good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Justice.
Okay, I have a few questions,
Thank you.
Justice Cruz.
Yes, ma'am.
Justice, what is your ranking now in the Court of Appeals in terms of seniority?
I am a senior justice of the 10th Division.
You are not yet a chairman.
Not yet, Your Honor.
Okay.
But
sige.
we're coming to that.
Yeah, how is your caseload?
Manageable. I have about
What do you mean manageable?
cases submitted for decision about less than 60.
Okay.
About 58, 55.
So what do you think of that zero backlog project of the court initiated by the present presiding justice of the Court of Appeals?
Very commendable, Your Honor, please. I have no dissent on that aspect. He's trying really to decongest
The court.
clogging of the courts.
You are now in Cebu.
Manila, Your Honor,
Ah, you're
since 2009.
Since 2009, you're already here
I
in
was here
Manila.
already.
But before you were in
Cebu, from
Cebu,
2006 to 2009.
2006
6
to
to
2009.
2009.
At that time, the local government of Cebu was giving allowances to the
Not,
members of the
not during my watch, Your Honor.
not during your watch, I guess. Now, what are your thoughts, even if you did not receive any allowance? What are your thoughts on this practice of the local government of giving allowances to the members of the judiciary? Do you think it affects the independence of the members of the judiciary?
Precisely, Your Honor, as I've said a while ago, although receiving it would be legal
Yes,
and your conscience would be clear,
yes.
but there's another aspect of it. Are you perceived by such to be impartial? And there are so many schools of thought that will come in that, oh, you're kidding, because may utang na loob, quote unquote, or something like that. So how could you be impartial if you are not perceived to be impartial? So the two must go together, perception and your inner self.
Okay. So you have been in the Court of Appeals since 2006.
That's correct, Your Honor.
So, if you will be fortunate to be nominated and appointed as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, what would you consider as a major challenge in the performance of your responsibilities as a member of the highest court of the land?
I would consider two things, Your Honor.
Yes.
One, I would be a team player.
Okay.
I would cooperate and side with judicial reforms. But I have to be independent-minded likewise, especially when you're the ponente of a case.
Yes.
You should not be swayed or influenced by your co-workers unless you are on the same line of thinking. Then you would concur. By that, I will be independent in deciding cases, but a team player on judicial reforms.
Now, again, if appointed as a member of the court, how do you intend to speed up the disposition of cases?
As I've said a while ago, Your Honor, please, I would try to shorten the decision period spent by a judge, especially in the trial courts, to such short time. And how do you do it? With the help of the counsels, which also they are officers of the court, by requiring them to submit their drafts and the other to submit their comments on that draft and vice versa. And with that, in your table, you could either pick one or derive data from them.
Okay, the record shows that you started the practice of law in 1977 after passing the bar
Yes, Your Honor.
as legal officer in the office of the president in
Yes, Your
Malacanang. Then you went into private practice with the law office until your appointment as the presiding judge of Branch 60 Regional Trial Court in Lucena, and from there you went up to the Court of Appeals. In all those posts which you have occupied, what do you consider as the most significant achievement which you are most proud of?
In my stint as an RTC judge, when I took that position or assumed the judgeship, it was a heinous crime court. And I was in Quezon province.
Okay.
Most of the cases in my sala involved rebels, especially Ka Roger. And it would be very ticklish if I hear those cases, very sensitive. Unfortunately, I did my job and issued warrants of arrest, decided cases in accordance with law, with those people sometimes taking the hard end. I know when I was conducting trial that there were on the gallery those nice people. But instead of earning their ire, because I was really straight, they approved of my actuations and relaying the message to me that if they were also in my place, I will do the same. So I administered justice, and earning the respect was I had a very nice, significant feeling about it. There were some. One is that we now adopted the ruling of the Supreme Court regarding consolidation of different cases filed with the Court of Appeals, that we now required party litigants to reveal if there are similar cases pending, so that we could really consolidate and avoid conflicting decision between divisions.
Okay. So, there was never an instance in your life as a member of the judiciary when somebody has complained against you?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
But there were administrative cases, but they were dismissed by the Supreme Court.
Okay. So, as of now,
None.
your record
As
is
of
clean?
now, I don't know of any.
That is what I want to know. So,
None, Your Honor.
you do not have any pending
Pending administrative, none, Your Honor.
or criminal case against you?
None, Your Honor.
Okay. On that note, I have no more question for Justice Cruz. I wish you luck.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much,
for
Your Honors,
coming.
please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I beg leave to.